Hey guys, how's it going? Kripparrian here. Today I want to give you guys the rundown on Un'Goro Arena. I got some stats for you guys, and I got a shitload of opinions for you guys. I want to start off with the good stuff. The good stuff is that we experienced a gigantic change in Arena this month. The standard rollover happened there as well, and the large influx of cards and the fact that we, had a really tough time really understanding what to play around, what to play, kind of what our opponents doing at all, how the high win brackets work, all these unknowns, and just relearning the game from just some kind of change, really good or bad, is awesome. And I think this is another example of that Blizzard should really pay attention to and really understand that Hearthstone is a great game. It just needs stuff to be different more often than it has in the past. And even though there's certainly some downsides to this arena, I've had quite an amazing time playing this month, except for all the wild decks that I've played. Now, in terms of the numbers, I have some statistics for you guys from Hearth Arena. Hearth Arena is one of my partners that deals with making people play and draft really well in Arena. Whenever you see me draft and you see the numbers on the screen, that's the Hearth Arena Overwolf app. Guides me through the drafts. Sometimes I don't pick exactly what they recommend, but it certainly helps you out. And because they help so many people out, so many people give them statistics as a result, and they have a really good understanding about what people are playing and how well they are playing in Arena. Now, the thing to understand is that, these are statistics just so you can start, getting your brains around them. It's important to realize that these are aggregated statistics. So if someone like me, I have like maybe 75% win rate, the aggregated is still going to be 50% in my case. Because, if I'm playing, let's say, a mage, and I'm playing against a druid lost and a mage won. So it's always 50% regardless of how much the actual player wins. So I'm saying that because, if you use Hearth Arena, your win rate is not 50%. I don't know how high it is, but it's higher than that. It's pretty good, I imagine. So that's why they are 50%, and that's why it's important to realize that numbers over 50% are quite significant. And there's the other factor that Arena is not really like a linear thing like Constructed. So if you have like a deck that has like 50-some% win rate in Constructed, it's like, oh wow, that's pretty good. It's just like every single match that you play, you have that same chance to go over. But in Arena, it's a little bit different because not all classes, not all decks are capable of getting the higher wins in Arena, because with each win that you go up, your difficulty increases. So, if you're capable of going 7 wins rather than 6 wins, it's not just beating another guy, it's beating another guy that on average was harder to beat than all 6 of the guys that you already beat. So what's significant about that is, as shown by the statistics, when you play Arena and get past 5 wins, you are really only playing against those top 3 classes, and I have felt that absolutely. Almost every single opponent is a rogue or a mage with the odd paladin sprinkled in once you get north of 6 wins. And that lack of diversity is pretty lame. And obviously on the bottom end, you hardly see any warriors and druids. So why is this going on? What is the cause of this? General cause of this is Un'Goro cards and how the structures work. I'll get into the more specifics in a second, but the main focus of this is that the base cards are really powerful, while Un'Goro's rarity structure was actually set pretty well in regards to Arena. It was just fully dominated by the base cards and the fact that some classes just received garbage. And generally the classes that received good stuff were already those that had really good base cards. And those are the really good classes right at the top there, which are the traditional strong Arena classes. So the main thing that pushes down the classes at the bottom is that they are just failures of the same archetype. So if you want to play control, you really can't get a better control deck than what can be offered within a priest or mage shell. You can't do that, right? Mage is more flexible than priest, and I think on average the decks are better, that's why it's higher up. But, if you're playing druid, it's like, yeah, I want to get some big minions and play a control deck. You're going to get absolutely destroyed because your ceiling of a good control deck is way lower than what's capable in mage and priest. And mage and priest even have like other archetypes. Like mage is the super flexible class traditionally in Arena. You can play control, which is top at right now. You can play tempo, you can play mid range, you can play some combo, though typically not really, and you play aggro if you want. It's really everything's game. when you play Mage. If you want to play a tempo deck, you know, again, you can do that with Druid. You can play a tempo Druid, but then you realize your deck is absolute crap compared to just basically any rogue deck. You know, the rogue decks dominate the tempo scene. And in terms of aggro, you have hunters and stuff, but aggro is largely hindered by the fact that going second when playing aggro in Arena is just such a big downside that you really need an obscene aggro deck to push past that downside. So you're never going to see aggro quite at the top of Arena as a result of that, even though Hunter is respectively number 4, meaning it's actually pretty good. So that's what's going on in Arena as a whole. In terms of my experiences, these are my overall stats. Nothing crazy. I'm nearing 30 arenas, so with Arena getting a little bit hard at the end of the month, probably my average wins will be a little bit lower than that, but I've done pretty well so far. You can see that first versus second is still a pretty big discrepancy. I'm losing about 1 in 5 games when I go first, and I'm losing about 1 in 3 games when I go second. So pretty rough there, but not any more rough than the last few expansions. It just proves that the going first versus going second problem is not fixed in any way, and it's about as bad as before. The most important stats are playing against other stuff, at least in my opinion. So this is that. I've played against 77 mages and 7 druids. That's an interesting one. You can see the win rates. The win rates that stand out is Rogue going second is like 54% win rate. Actually, up until about last week, my win rate against Rogue going second was 30-something. The average Rogue, when I went second against it, I would win 1 in 3 games, despite having some of the best Arena records possible. That's pretty ridiculous if you think about it. And that largely has to do with Envenom and a few of the other cards that they have that really push the win. It's like win more. If I have HP, this card is better. If I can use this card before my opponent can, this card is better. And Rogue has certainly been one of the big offenders of the imbalance of first versus second. But that has changed a little bit more recently because I played a lot of Mage recently. My first Arena in Un'Goro was Mage, but I wasn't offered Mage for like, 10 or 12 or whatever arenas, and more recently I have been offered Mage literally every single time. So I have played a lot of Mage recently, and Mage is actually one of the more, perhaps the most balanced class going second, because there's so many recovery options with all the different spells available. But of course, a lot of people also play Mage, and it can be difficult to get through those mirror matchups. Other notable statistics, I've played 11 Warriors and I've lost against none of them. If memory serves me correct, none of those have even been close. Druid, I hadn't lost to Druid up until a couple of days ago when I just got innervated and ramped out into premium cards right away. You guys know the drill. Druid's kind of a high roll class, but in Arena, those cards that allow Druid to high roll and constructed are not very good on average. So they're not picked very often, so it happens really infrequently. So basically what I'm saying is, if you're playing Warrior or Druid against me, you're really not going to win. So if you're playing Warrior or Druid against anybody, you're probably not going to win. So that's kind of the core of the issue that we see in Arena this time around. My worst win rate is actually against Warlock, but again, I think I've lost against the last 3 or 4 Warlocks I've played, so that's kind of temporarily skewed. And the main main problem that personally I have had in Arena is I've played a ridiculous amount of wild decks. People talk shit about me complaining about snipers and stuff all the time. To date, I have played 9 opponents at 11 wins. 3 of them have had standard decks, and 6 of them have had wild decks. And I think half of those are Warlocks. And yeah, no shit, I lost to them. People had 1-year-old decks with Void Callers and crap. Yeah, I'm going to lose against those. It's not really a fair matchup, so it does skew those stats, and I think it actually skews those stats in favor of other classes succeeding, because most of these wild decks were like Warlocks and Paladins and Shamans. So in reality, Mage and Rogues actually better than they seem in these statistics, and they obviously are pretty nuts. So what is the core cause of this? So as I mentioned, the core issue is that the classic, the base cards for Mage and Rogue are the best ones. And, you know, they kind of had a lower offering bonus for Flame Strike, but nothing else really changed. And the cards in the Un'Goro expansion, they were balanced for rarity, but they were not balanced when considering the fact that a whole bunch of cards will exit standard, and Un'Goro will basically have to rebalance the arena meta. Now, they certainly accounted for that, at least in some ways, in terms of the constructed meta, but the constructed meta and the arena meta are not even close to the same thing when this is to be considered. So that's why we have that. My main frustrations have to do with very few cards. With Rogue, I think Envenom Weapon is just so stupid. Giving your weapon poisonous makes it so going first, if you have that card and your opponent is playing mid-range to late-game guys, you just win the game off of that. Just straight up win the game. So something like that is painfully stupid. I think Blizzard should really take a hard look at cards that won't see very much constructed play and see if they break Arena completely. Because, you know, what's the point of making those cards? Mage has had another insanely powerful spell with Meteor, and almost the entire rest of the cards are on a high power level or randomly generate spells. And because Meteor, Firelance Portal, and Flame Strike, and like Blizzard, and maybe like one other are like the most powerful spells in the game, just randoming into one of those is just another win condition. So it's just really frustrating. Often enough, you play at high wins against a Mage, and you know he's holding 6 cards, and you can see off your deck tracker that like 6 of them are just created. So like, how the hell are you supposed to actually play? Seriously, like how do you play that game? It's like, oh, well, he has some kind of removal. Let's play this. Oh, he has that, I lose. That's literally the game against high win mages sometimes. So it's really frustrating. I think the Blizzard should take this hard lesson that it's not okay to just not consider Arena for the standard cycle, because it's really important. And while the game is certainly really fun, it gets pretty old to play like mages and rogues in every single game after 5 wins in Arena. So that kind of sucks. Another interesting aspect, I don't know if it's true anymore, but it's probably true just by looking at the stats real quick. More than half of my losses have been against Mage and Rogue, despite not playing Mage and Rogue half the time. So, you know, when you're playing and you realize almost all of your games are going to be losses going second to Rogue or going, against a really powerful Mage deck, it's just kind of dumb. You know how you're going to lose, and it just feels like roulette, just like queuing into Arena and hoping it's not one of those classes with a competent player behind. So we'll see. I think right now the Arena meta is still fairly enjoyable, but I do think in the downturn of the expansion, like the last month or so before the next expansion is going to come out, it's going to be really bad this time around. And it has been really bad for most of the last few expansions, but we'll see. Maybe they'll change something up. Maybe there'll be more new considerations. And please, Blizzard, fix the wild deck crap, okay? I know I'm disproportionately affected by this, but to get to 11 wins and know that my chance of playing a wild deck is twice as likely as playing against a standard deck is really bullshit, okay? So please, Blizzard. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your experiences so far in Un'Goro, and we'll see what the future holds.